Yeah, just start. Oh, really?
Our apologies for the delay. We were in executive session. Could you please call the roll?
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Here.
Commissioner Shaw?
Here.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Here.
Commissioner Holliday?
Here.
Commissioner Ide?
Here.
And Commissioner Van Haverbeek will be calling in soon. Chair Mengelberg?
Here. Do we have any citizen comments this evening?
We do not.
Thank you. With that, we'll proceed with the presentation, the Cove Project Phase 1. Eric Underwood.
Is your mic on here? Okay.
Is this on?
Sounds like it. Is the red button, no, right in front of you, is the red button on? There you go.
There it is now. Is that working?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, Colin Kehoe, Vancouver, British Columbia, and you wanted a Vice President, Hudson Holdings. So, obviously we started a little bit late. Do we have a full hour, or are we trying to condense it down a bit? There's just a few people who want to come up and talk, and I got a little bit to say, but I can shorten it down if we want to.
We'd like to try and finish by 7 if possible.
By 7 if possible. Okay then. So we'll see. I'll cut a little bit of this out then. So firstly, thank you for the opportunity to present our concept. I'm with the Cove LLC, the proposed developer of Phase 2. Thank you. Our basic intent is to create quality rental apartments, which right now are obviously in high demand in the market, and particularly Oregon City. They'll be supported by some attractive public amenities like the plaza, the esplanade, and all of that will sort of connect to some cycle paths, some walking trails, and hopefully tie it in with the downtown Oregon City as well. There's a broad range of units. There's live-work units. All of this has secure underground parking and elevator access. The commercial component, which is predominantly in the central buildings where the plaza is going to have restaurants. And there's going to be ground level retail all along Agnes with small businesses. So there'll be many small businesses all along Agnes facing, the parking there. So with us, maybe I'll just go through the list. We've got Paul Boundy from LRS Architects. He's going to come up here in a minute to do the presentation. We also have Steve Deacon from Deacon Corp, Scott Watson from Greystar, the property management company. He's going to come up probably first and just talk a little bit about the market and where we're at. And then we have Rob Affleck from Berkadia. He's going to just talk briefly about the financing. And again, if you have questions, you can ask them. But I know we want to get out of here. So next, we'll have, and I suppose finally, we'll get John Runyon to talk about the mitigation. So that's very important. So firstly, I'll just get Scott Watson to come up here from Greystar. And the largest property manager in the United States with over 400,000 units under their management. And he'll take you through the market briefly.
So is Steve Van Haverbeek on with us now?
Yes.
Steve, can you hear us?
Is it easy to put, if you plug the USB in, just to put it on the screen? Is it a quick process?
Yeah, for all of you, it's the same thing, whatever you would like to do.
Well, why don't you give the handout to us, and Katie can try and work on the PowerPoint.
Steve, are you there?
He's gone.
Do we want to move ahead?
Yeah, let's not delay anymore for Steve.
My name is Scott Watson. I'm with Greystar here in Portland, Oregon. We're a property management firm here in town. I wanted to give you kind of the market overview, and I'm in the handouts, there's...
Hey, Steve, you finally with us? Steve?
I'm back.
Okay, we're starting.
And in the handouts, I wanted to kind of start with the greater economy. Portland, Oregon has never been in better shape economically. I put a simple handout from the... Okay? You want to just keep, how do you want to keep going?
Just go.
Things are good in Portland. On a number of measures, job creation, in migration, all of these are really good for housing in general, the apartment industry specifically. Don't want to dwell on it. I want to move on to the next page. Job creation, unemployment rates,
Okay, let's just cut them
all
off.
of those messages.
I'm done.
All of those messages are positives. I wanted to point out that our region, the MSA, the Portland, Vancouver MSA, up almost 210,000 jobs since the trough, 135,000 jobs since the upturn began. We're adding something on the order of about 23,000 jobs to the MSA each year. We're not building housing anywhere near that kind of inflow. I'm going to move to the next slide so we're respectful of time. On average, we're seeing about 120, 125 people a day moving into the MSA. We're not building housing anywhere near that. I've got the general numbers by counties in here. Clackamas is put on 8,000 some odd new souls to the county. We're not building housing at that level. Then the next slide is with the additional households forecast through 2022. That equates to about 24,500 new rentals. I think this year we've got about 500 new rentals coming into the Clackamas market. I mean, we're just nowhere near the jobs that, or the housing that needs to be created. The next slide is really a forecast of what is in the pipeline construction-wise, and it's really a downtown Portland phenomenon. We're going to deliver about 6,500 apartment units in the MSA this year. Most of that is downtown. With the affordable housing mandate downtown, it's really put a damper on future development. A lot of developers rushed to get projects in ahead of the affordable mandate. They're having a hard time financing them. We may not see those out years projections anywhere near what they've got on here. And it has to do with, we've got an oversupply right now with units that were rushed to market. We've got declining rents because of the concessions being added to the downtown market. We don't have that in our market out here. We're seeing positive rent gains, something in the order of about 3% per year rent gains in your market, Oregon City market. Downtown, that's 2.5%, 2.2% negative this year. We haven't seen that in decades. With the affordable mandate, we're probably going to see our next slide up, please, if I could. We're going to see a drop off on units delivered. We're going to see, if you believe this slide, and I really don't believe this slide, it's saying that we're going to go to 2% gain or less on rent gains in out years, down to 0 in 2021. I expect what we're going to see is that with the drop off in development, you're probably going to fill up those units. We're probably going to see the concessions go out of the market first and then rent gains come back into the market. I think you're going to see 2% or thereabouts in those out years, 2021 or so. That's all I really prepared for this deal.
I think that's great.
I hope that helps you all.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you, Scott. Maybe now, Rob Affleck, come up, just say a couple of things about Arcadia and the financing.
I'm Rob Affleck with Berkadia. We're a national real estate lender. We focus on multifamily investments. We do HUD, Fannie Mae, and Freddie Mac. This particular loan opportunity would be a new construction HUD loan under their 221D4 program.
Any questions? Well, I don't want to rush him through anything, but I also want to be respectful of the time we have. And you don't see any problems with this project?
Yeah, no problems with the project. We've done our initial review. Our ownership is Berkshire Hathaway. The Berkadia name is under Berkshire, so we're ready for this deal.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, thank you for time. So then, I think Paul Boundy from LRS Architects will come up, and then maybe we'll have Mike Toll as well from Dow, the civil engineer, and he can talk or answer any questions you have about the schedule. Thanks.
And it'd probably be helpful to have that slideshow back up. Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. Paul Boundy, Managing Principal, LRS Architects. While she's getting that up, I just want to say I'm a resident. I live in Jennings Lodge, just across the river. I spend a lot of time, my wife and I, walking around the cove, walking around that loop, and we really like it. We're really looking forward to kind of increasing the connectivity, activating that area quite a bit. You know, it's obviously underutilized, and it's going to be really, I think, really cool to see it develop, and as it's started to develop already over the last couple of years. So project we're talking about today, which I think everybody's kind of familiar with, but I'll run through it real quick. We're talking about building 8 buildings. It's the other one.
The one you had on first time.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's all boring stuff to me.
Okay.
Doesn't mean anything. Okay. 8 buildings here. What we're talking about building. There's essentially 2 phases to the construction. The first phase is going to be 5 buildings, and the second phase is 3 buildings. It's about 235 units in the first phase, and are roughly about 100 and some odd in the second phase. My math is kind of fuzzy at the moment. We have 3 different building types that we're proposing here for this project. The 2 buildings, which we're, for lack of any creativity right now, we're calling Building A, are the plaza buildings. So they essentially frame the plaza at the center of the development. So that'll be the primary area for access from the public from the Agnes side into the plaza side. There will obviously still be the access from the Main Street end, and there's also access from the other end of Agnes. So the development is building Agnes and providing public parking, some on-street parking and some on-site parking that can support both of those. The Building A's will also have the majority of the retail space, the commercial space. It's got higher ceilings on the ground floor. It's being designed for flexibility, so hopefully I think we all want to see the restaurants in there. There are decks to support that, to restaurants to go outside, overview the cove. The other Building A also has the common community center amenity, which is the area for all the residents to gather. It has swimming pool, it has fitness area. It'll have basically the social hub of the facility, also where the leasing offices will be. The bookend buildings, which we were referring to as Building D, are at the Agnes, or at the end, the north and the south ends of the project. They are primarily facing Main Street, and they bookend the facility. Those also have decks that provide amenity spaces for the residents. The center buildings are more just primarily residential. They do have ground level live-work units, what Colin was referring to as the active and the business use along the ground floor side on the Agnes Street side. All of these have the underground parking, and Colin's mentioned some of this already, that's secure. There's also a significant amount of on-grade parking that is open and usable for the public and also for the residents. The plaza itself at the center of the development, if we can, or I guess that's what this is for here. Oops.
Oops, sorry.
Did I do that? Okay, the plaza here, as we're looking at it from the Agnes Street side, is really, it's somewhat a work in progress. The framework of this is that we're going to have trees planted, very formal, very sort of a processional out to the cove itself. There's going to be some water features in there. We're still working on the detailed design of all this, but it's a nice mix of just kind of not too formal of a plaza, but comfortable, a lot of nature, a lot of landscape within that space. And then on the cove side, which you're seeing here in the screen, We have the two amenity deck on the right side, the restaurant deck on the left side, and then we have a grand staircase that drops down to the Esplanade. It's got a lot of opportunity for seating. It's got ramping for both accessibility and for bicycle access coming off that plaza. So I think that's going to be a really nice kind of midpoint.
Curiosity, you show a swimming pool. Is that actually going to be there?
Yes.
So how are you going to keep the public out of that space?
There will be some level of security, some level of, whether it's screening or fencing. We haven't designed that part of it yet, but yeah, we would have to have, because that is going to be the tenant space, we do want to give them a little bit of privacy.
Right.
From the cove, because of the floodplain, there's a lot of different elevations going on here, so that's actually a little higher than the Esplanade. So it's not a situation where somebody's going to be walking by and looking in. It'll be a situation where they can see over the cove, and then there'll still be a little bit of, the Esplanade itself won't be this, it'll be up against landscaping, so it's not going to be totally, you're not going to be staring at the faces of these buildings right up against the walkway in the Esplanade. Let's see, the landscaping, nice segue into that. We're doing the whole landscaping area along the cove, and along the Esplanade is going to be the riparian native repair that goes along with the other renovation work that's going on around the cove. There's ornamentals that'll be at the access points to the Esplanade as well as in the plaza. And then we're using a lot of evergreen shrubs. We're using a lot of growing vines to screen, because of all the elevation changes, there are obviously some exposed walls throughout the facility. So we're using the landscape to try to screen as much of that as we possibly can. The units themselves, as Colin mentioned, we've got a mix of studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. The upper level unit, pretty much all of them, with the exception of maybe a half dozen of them, all have decks. The upper level, the 4th floor on this, is going to have some higher ceilings. We've got some upper windows. You see some of the articulation in the ceiling along the plans comes from the higher ceilings within those spaces. All of the units themselves have generously sized windows, both for views to the cove and daylighting, and also the views to the opposite, the other side of the site. The materials, we're still working through the final materials. We are looking at using brick for the base of the building. It will be a fiber cement panel or siding for the majority of the building. We're mixing sort of blues and gray color scheme is where we're heading towards right now. So we're still developing that as we work through the design development phase of the project. All right, any questions?
Sir, how many of these are you proposing for live work? How many of these units?
There are 4 live work units in each of the 4 buildings. So there's 16 live work units in the 4B buildings. And then there are 2 live work units in each of the D buildings on the end. And all those live work units are facing Agnes. If there's a unit facing Agnes on the ground floor, it is going to be a live work unit. So it's got a street front, a storefront that opens out. It's got a commercial space. The way the apartments lay out, there are bedrooms next to them that tend to have windows, or living spaces next to them that have windows out as well. But the primary working area and the commercial area is going to be all glass storefront.
And is that like 3 stories tall? Each unit, a live work unit, would it be tall?
No, they're all a single floor.
All single, oh.
Yeah, they have a little higher ceiling. They're a little bit more flexible than the typical floors.
It makes that retirement thing sound a lot easier. I like that.
Yeah, I don't think I have the live work. Here's the one on the right. Kind of tough to see. The room on the left is sort of what we're just showing it as the generic office space. It's set back a little bit, so there's a bit of an arcade. The Oregon City Planning Code requires a certain amount of arcade and opening and window, and that's storefront that opens directly to that. And then the units next to it, the door opens into the living room, kitchen, and then we've got bedroom, bathroom away from that.
Okay.
So in terms of the space you need, or the footage that you need for the vertical housing credit on the live work units, does that calculate just the work portion, or is that whole unit able to be part of that calculation?
I would probably defer to Colin on this, but I believe the vertical is coming in the loft units, which I didn't mention.
Yeah, don't quote me on it, I believe it's 50% of the frontage of all the buildings need to be commercial. and the whole frontage of the live work unit is considered commercial. So,
Okay,
I think that answers
even the live part of it,
sorry.
even the live portion of
Even the live
the
portion
unit is considered commercial.
Yes, it's considered.
All right, thank you.
Question on the sound barrier from the freeway behind the buildings. Is there any kind of construction that you can do or planning to do to screen some of the noise from the freeway?
Well, we have an acoustical consultant on board who will be doing testing in the space. The last project we did with the Deacon team was actually along the Banfield Freeway in Portland, and a very similar scenario here where we can't really screen the sound at the road, so we've got to do something at the wall of the building. We have to look at the window construction, we have to look at the wall construction. All that will be part of the design development evaluation that we're doing. In those cases, there's some thicker windows you can utilize. There are some different wall type constructions you can utilize to minimize the impact. That answer your question? Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Nancy, it's been a while since I've seen you.
Yeah, nice to see you again.
Yeah, sure. And so next is Mike Toll.
So, a moment, please. Sorry about the volume. Do we share the same understanding of the vertical tax credit and the qualifications for it, both the developer and us?
The qualifications is they have to have 50% of a primary street frontage be commercial. And so those do qualify as a non-residential commercial on it for vertical housing.
I understand that, but to get that credit, does each specific building have to offer that combination, the live work? Say there's 3 separate buildings and only one of them has the live work situation. Does that extend to the other buildings, or are those just the building where that exists?
The buildings that have that existence is the equalized floors that you calculate.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we share a common understanding. There's no misunderstandings of that going forward. Thank you.
Right. So, Mike Toll with Dowell out of Portland. I'm a civil project manager, and as of right now, the keeper kind of this project schedule, and just some high-level things that we want to point out to kind of ensure that this project is successful. And we've worked with the city and greatly appreciate the help of Public Works and planning to this point, and we'll plan on continuing working with them moving forward. But the main goal here is to get the CDP application process going with the target goal of breaking ground as soon as we possibly can in the spring, which is currently targeted for first part of May. There's a lot of earthwork with the floodplain concerns out here, and we want to make sure that work is being done in the summertime when we've got good weather to do that. So the way we've worked with the city to structure this application currently allows us to kind of package the mass grading with this CDP application up front. To allow us to kind of submit on a mass grading, early grading package as soon as possible and get that work permitted ahead of kind of the rest of the site work in the building construction to really make sure that we can hit that kind of May deadline. So, within a few days of having approval to submit the CDP application, we're ready to submit and get that process started so we can make sure we hit that date in May.
And then would you begin construction on just the first phase, and then the second phase would be at a later date?
So the mass grading of the entire site would happen at one time. It's really all kind of tied together with regards to the floodplain and how it all ties together. So we would mass grade the site on the second phase of that construction so that it's ready to go once we're ready to get going on that building and site work. But yeah, the building permit piece would fall later that summer and be approved kind of towards the end of the summer with the rest of the site work and public infrastructure with the Agnes improvement.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mike. Now, Steve Deacon, like to say a few words.
I know, quick, right?
How are we doing?
Yeah.
15 minutes, right?
My name is Steve Deacon. I live in Portland, and I'm the CEO of Deacon Construction and the manager of Deacon Development. Our company has been in business since 1981 in Portland, and we currently have 4 offices. We're a West Coast company now. We're in Seattle, Sacramento, as well as Southern California. We do about $400 million of volume a year, and the type of work we do is a combination of multifamily, hospitality, retail, restaurant, and the project that is envisioned here is the type that we work on frequently, and we're excited to be part of it, both from a construction standpoint and from a development standpoint. I think it's really got the opportunity to be just a spectacular gem of a project, and so it's fun to be involved in the early stages. Our development group has been around for about 15 years. I'm accompanied here by Ryan Shera. Ryan, you can raise your hand. Development manager, and Armand Malazzo. He's our design and construction manager. I would term us as a developer. We're a very hands-on type developer because I think probably because of our construction background. We started as a contractor, and then now we do both construction and development, and it's created sort of a hands-on, detailed approach to the projects. Our goal is always to create a project that is really as good as we can make it, as effective, as efficient, and then that's hard to define. But we don't delegate the responsibility for trying to make the project be the best that it can be. We really get hands-on involved with the design team. We've worked with LRS before, we've worked with Dowell before, and as well as the consultants. Like talked about the acoustic consultant, we're using the same one on your project that we're using on the one in the Hollywood district right now. Listen Acoustics, and it does get tricky. You got to think about you know, the STC rating on the windows and any of the openings, and that's very important so that the end product is something that people will really be happy with when they're living there, because this is going to be people's homes. I wanted to say that where the city can help us is, and you have been, we've been very impressed with the quality of the staff and the interaction. Very good people to work with, very proactive, and it's been very pleasurable in working through the process. And it's so important for a project like this because it really takes a team to come off right. And where you guys can help is in just helping us get through the process of get our submittals into you, review times, and being responsive to us, and we'll do our very best to be responsive to your questions as well. Like Mike mentioned, we're working hard to get started in May of next year because that's when the weather, in theory, starts getting better, and the soil here is weather sensitive, and so you don't want to be doing it in the middle of the winter time.
Okay.
That's all I had. Any questions?
Great. No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve. Thank you. From Resto Cap, John Runyon? Yeah. Is public matters? Okay. So John Runyon's going to be talking on behalf of Resto Cap about mitigation.
John Runyon, principal with Cascade Environmental Group based in Portland. So it's interesting, sort of the flip side of the population growth and development in the region is a growing demand for habitat mitigation. My firm is working with the city of Portland right now to look at mitigation demand and ways to meet that demand, specifically for Portland, because they're seeing a tremendous growth in the need for mitigation there, and that extends out to the region. Clackamas Cove is well positioned for mitigation because it's connected to the Willamette River. Significant fish runs of salmon and steelhead go up Clackamas. It's regionally important in that way. And one of the key missing habitat elements in the region is shallow water habitat, which the cove could potentially provide, creating shallow water and wetlands along the margin areas. We're currently looking at the west side of the cove and the potential for mitigation there. And now that we have a better understanding of the details around the development, we can look at, okay, how would we integrate in mitigation with the development, because it is really about integration. I mean, they spoke about planting native plants on the riparian edge. What would that look like adjacent to the mitigation areas? And where we are in terms of the process is we think by May we'll have a good sense for what kind of mitigation, what markets would be available, the financing and the details around it at that point. And some of the critical details obviously are evaluating the environmental uplift in general in the cove. Things like water quality, the algae blooms, what kind of impacts would we have on future algae blooms, and then ultimately what kind of fish and wildlife habitat would be generated from it. And part of this process is, once we have a better sense for the details, engaging the state and federal agencies who are going to have the ultimate say and approval of the mitigation bank. So questions?
I'll reserve my question for the end of the presentation.
Okay.
Well, that is the end of the presentation.
All right.
Okay.
If you'd like to ask.
No, the question is not directed to him.
Please go ahead. It's not.
The question to the team. The team appears to be in harmony on moving forward in this project. My question, quite honestly, is, it's a fertile market and the timing is right. But my question is on the financing component. So I guess it would be directed primarily at the gentleman from the Berkshire Hathaway firm. Are you financing all phases of the project at the same time? Or is it?
Not at the same time, no.
They can't hear you on TV back there.
Okay, I'll restate the question.
Berkadia.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, not at the same time. No.
So
We're
how
doing this
extensive,
first phase.
where, this is the first phase?
Yes.
Okay, and
It'll be one loan for the first phase.
for the first phase, and does the restore cap credits to be generated, do they serve as any component in your financing calculation? I don't know if you understand that there's credits to be generated, they're an asset. Are they part of your asset calculation in the funding?
No.
Okay. So the project is financially sound, you're ready to move forward and finance it with no other reservations at this point?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Question for you about the rents for the 1, 2, 3 bedrooms.
Yes.
And how they compare with the Portland area?
Yes.
Just the anticipated rents for the units.
No, we've done a market study and an appraisal that's addressed the rents. And, they take all the other apartments in the Oregon City / Clackamas area and compare like projects. And so those are the rents that we conclude to based on the appraiser's recommendation in that report. And how they compare to the rest of Portland, I mean, if you're going, downtown or the Pearl District, they're quite a bit lower than those.
Yeah, okay.
How about compared to Oregon City or Gladstone or this area?
Because it's a nice project, on average, it's going to be slightly higher than Oregon City. And
How much
it's
is
a new
slightly?
product. Yeah.
What does slightly mean? I think maybe Scott Watson with Greystone would be able to answer that a little bit.
So.
A bit clearer. I think so. If that would be okay.
Sure.
Thank you, Bob.
I'll take the hot seat. Scott Watson of Greystar. The question really was, what are the rents expected to be at the Cove versus the greater Oregon City? There really doesn't exist a project like the Cove in Oregon City, so it's not a fair comparison. If you're looking at older existing stock in the Oregon City Gladstone submarket down here, it's $1.35, $1.40 a foot kind of thing, whereas this project is, at last glance, was a $2.35 a foot, $2.36 a foot. What does that mean in monthly rent? If you're renting a one-bedroom standard apartment in Oregon City, it's probably in the $900 to $1,000 a month kind of range. That's going to be a $1,600 to $2,200, $2,300 range at the Cove. Does that answer the question? Downtown rents, for example, are 270-ish, 250 to 270. So we're quite a bit below that level.
And the amenity package that's envisioned for this project is quite a bit richer than what
anything that exists now in the Oregon City market. It's fully amenitized.
And the location.
Pardon?
And the location.
And the location. Nothing like this. You'd have to go back into the Pearl District or Lake Oswego with the Windward, something like that for a comparison.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Scott.
Fair.
Thank you.
All right.
Is that it? Any other questions?
I've got one more.
Okay.
I have to bring another musical chair up, I think. So I'm just trying to get an idea of the mass of these buildings. If I was, say I was standing up on 205 and the phase one that's already built, we know what the build-out height is on those. Where are the top of these buildings going to be compared to what we're seeing there now?
I think maybe Paul Boundy, would you be able to answer that with a bit more clarity than I?
Yeah, not particularly. I believe the existing buildings are 3- and 4-story in the you're talking about across Main Street?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe they're in the 3 to 4-story range. They're elevated up because of the floodplain as well. We are talking about here, everything here is going to be 4 stories. I think the baseline elevation from where everything starts is the same because that's basically our floodplain number on both sides of the road. It's hard to tell what you'll see from 205, to be honest with you. We droned the site.
That was just I didn't mean for sure. I just want to know.
Yeah, we are a little further away. What's it going to look like
height-wise compared to what's already there?
We're a little further away. We're going to be a little taller.
Okay.
And we're a little further away from the freeway, but we droned it and we set some elevations, and you do get some really cool views from the top floor. So, it's nice.
I may need another appearance from the money man. Since this is a risk and reward thing with your institution, what is the expected value of this upon completion, and maybe others can participate in that answer? And what is the investment upfront, and what are the anticipated construction costs? So that's a balance, that's a ledger sheet type of thing. Can you give me any insights into that?
I mean, it's
Expected value?
roughly expected value around $85 million.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
And then the investment is around
Well, with Rob Affleck, he's involved financial-wise on just phase one. So the numbers we're talking now is just for the first 5 buildings.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're probably asking about the project as a whole.
You can answer it in any way you want. You can answer it in sequence, or you can answer it in total.
Okay, fine. So
roughly $8 million equity.
8 million?
Yes.
8 million equity upon completion, immediate equity?
No, before construction.
Before construction. And construction costs, which I'm sure you've seen because that's part of the calculation of funding.
Yeah, the hard costs would be around the 65 million mark.
And the subsequent stages, is that a conditional, is your institution involved in that?
We would like to be, yes.
Okay, but at this point, it's open for financing by any number of institutions?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the commission?
No.
All right.
Well, thank you very much.
With that, thank you very much for your
Thank you.
presentation
Very
and
much.
for bringing your experts to us to learn more about the project. We appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you. We did it 2 minutes to go.
And we're on time too, so thank you for that as well.
Thank you very much.
In terms of general business, there's minutes for the April 18th meeting. Are there any
Move to
concerns?
approve the minutes.
Seconded.
Could you call the roll, please?
Yes. Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Shaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Aye.
Commissioner Holliday?
Aye.
Commissioner Ide?
Here, or aye.
And Chair Mengelberg?
Aye. Are there any future agenda items the commission would like to propose? City Manager's report, Mr. Kunkel.
I do not have any updates for the Urban Renewal Commission tonight.
All right.
Thank you.
With that, we are adjourned.
Start about 10 after. Smooth it over. Did you get what you needed? Yeah.